Beyond social justice. For many educators, the recent changes to educational policy, such as the elimination of DEI programming, may make us feel that equity and diversity are under attack. Educators must press forward. The reality is that we live in a complex, multicultural world of multimedia literacy, and we must prepare our students to move through this world, interacting for successful collaboration. To meet these needs, there must be a radical and complete shift from social justice as virtue to equity as pragmatism. Diversity is strength, multilingualism is a natural advantage, and critical multimodal learning that rejects dogma and factionalism. The goal of this presentation will be to prescribe teaching strategies that support diversity. Throughout this presentation, a path to inclusion and diversity through intercultural communication will be envisioned. To achieve these goals, both the positives and pitfalls of diversity in public and private organizations will be identified, analyzing the current backlash to DEI policies. The multilingual advantage will be proposed as a support for diversity. Finally, we'll look at educational strategies that produce intercultural communicators. So, let's begin by examining how diversity can benefit organizations and understanding the context that has produced a backlash to DEI programs. We'll distinguish between multicultural and intercultural communication and how to manage diversity within organizational unity. Organizations need diverse perspectives to expand the body of knowledge and creativity within the public and private sectors. However, diversity must be managed for it to be successful. When people interact interculturally with open communication between groups and individuals, diversity has a positive organizational effect. Contrary to the view that diversity is strength, are a string of recent state bans and an executive order dismantling DEI initiatives. The backlash has formed in response to many factors, not least of which the perception that corporate DEI efforts are largely performative and shallow. Often, the rhetoric from corporations is vague and comes across as self interested social posturing. Let's dive deeper into the debate around woke and integrative initiatives as defined by Waldman and Spar 2023 and the responding critique by Di Tommaso 2024. DEI initiatives are sometimes built on a static view of racial hierarchy from which ethical positions are prescribed. As Di Tommaso states, the past is a part of the present and helps to create the future. While this is true, if difference always results in inequity and these trajectories are fixed by the past, there is a diminished basis for intercultural unity and exchange in the present. The presupposition of ethical positioning based on a static view of racial privilege belies critical examination. The framework promotes a blanket mandate for privileged groups defined by immutable personal characteristics to change the status quo without specificity about what that change entails or how it is to be carried out. On the other hand, central to Waldman and Spar's argument, there is an inherent paradox at play between the opposing concepts of diversity and unity. But instead of an ethical mandate that drives integrative initiatives, there is a practical need for diversity because of an empirical advantage. Diversity is better because it is better. Too little diversity of thought with high levels of organizational unity results in groupthink. At the other end of the paradox, too much diversity with no sense of unity or organizational purpose can result in factionalism or really bubbles of groupthink. There is a distinction to be made between an integrative model and a multicultural one. A multicultural approach where groups coexist in tolerance but without dialogue creates factions within organizations. Undefined goals and strategies also prevent progress. Across the literature, a few salient points are recurrent about diversity and equity. Successful diversity management is built on the ability to communicate effectively. Organizations must undergo a thorough and transparent examination of organizational practices with actionable steps and goals based on data. Dialogue should be guided by critical reflection and open viewpoints with voice equity. Ultimately, successful integration and the benefits of diversity can be reaped through intercultural communicative competency. So, how do we as educators respond to the need to create intercultural communicative competence while enhancing critical thinking skills? There is an inherent multilingual advantage that can be harnessed to support the necessary skills for intercultural collaboration. Let's look at the obstacles and opportunities. Another paradox in education has arisen. While multilingual learners demonstrate academic struggle in monolingual schools, multilingualism is associated with improved executive function, cognitive function, brain structure, and cognitive processing. These two sets of data don't immediately make sense when put side by side. To improve educational outcomes for multilingual students across the English speaking world, several key principles emerge that consistently support academic performance in marginalized multilingual and multicultural communities. These include culturally sustaining practice, which considers student backgrounds and needs, as well as fostering inquiry and addressing inequities in the classroom and beyond. Unfortunately, we often serve multilingual learners in a context that emphasizes a kind of dual monolingualism, a model dubbed the two solitudes. This model of distinction between home and target languages creates a disconnect between the home language and the target language of instruction. High lexical skills in the home language support second language development. However, in the two solitudes model, there is often decreased exposure to the home language for multilingual learners that threatens their development. It doesn't have to be this way. We can use effective strategies for multilingual students that will simultaneously benefit the intercultural communication competencies of all students. The use of translanguaging is a culturally sustaining practice that encourages the use of multiple languages in the classroom, utilizing critical home language skills and background knowledge. The growth of dual language immersion programs gives all students the opportunity to develop multilingual competence. Just the exposure to multilingualism that monolingual students receive from multilingual peers benefits their development. Returning to the problem at hand of creating better organizational communicative competence to promote diversity, multilingual individuals demonstrate better communication skills. Multilingualism influences the development of a multicultural identity that enhances one's sense of self while allowing for better intercultural understanding. These are the exact skills that would support successful diversity integration. Thinking back to the success of inquiry based pedagogy in global educational contexts, teachers should encourage student centered collaboration and discussion as a part of their regular classroom activities. When teachers ask students critical questions, they allow students to practice the kind of thinking and dialogue that fosters intercultural exchange. In summary, public and private organizations thrive through the open communication of diverse viewpoints, united to achieve well defined goals through data driven strategies. American classrooms also thrive when fostering inquiry based, culturally sustaining pedagogy. Students must be prepared to engage in critical intercultural communication. Multilingual classrooms and multilingual competency are uniquely poised to support the development and success of all learners. Thank you.